Hey Outseers, this is my last day in Edinburgh today. We're going to Glasgow tonight. Gonna be staying there the last couple of days of the trip. We just got back from Ireland, but I just wanted to kind of go around and get some history. I've been getting a lot of landscape, B-roll, just kind of show you around, but wanted to share some of the details that makes Edinburgh so special. Right now we're walking down Victoria Street. Really the main significance of it is that it's the most photographed street in the city. It's just very pretty. Nice representation of the culture and the architecture. Yeah. Lots of cute dogs here. But yeah, not too many people. Some people say that this is what Diagon Alley on Harry Potter was modeled after, but that is kind of just left up to your own belief. J.K. Rowling did write Harry Potter, the original, here, so that would make sense. She wrote it right near here. We're going to be going there as well, but just wanted to kind of show it around a bit. We've been to a couple of these restaurants. The balconies are really nice. There's pubs, restaurants, hookah lounge, everywhere here. There's people doing probably a Harry Potter tour right now. But let's see, the little curve down here is really nice. Here we go. And it's kind of just a smooth little walk. Although I think I accidentally went downhill of where I'm trying to go, so that might have been a mistake. But yeah. This is Victoria Street, just a very famous street. Lots of gift shops, lots of tourist stuff. So this is closed, but we wanted to get in. Unfortunately, looks like a fire due to devastating fire in this building. Yes, so this is where J.K. Rowling wrote the original Harry Potter, the Sorcerer's Stone. You see up there it says birthplace of Harry Potter, Elephant Cafe. She did not have heating in her apartment. She couldn't afford it, so she went there every day, snacked on some cakes and pies, and well, you know the rest. One of the most popular authors of all time, and it started right here on this street. Pretty crazy to think about. So they do call this the birthplace of Harry Potter. And that's why I mentioned earlier that Diagon Alley could have possibly been inspired by Victoria Street, where we went on just a while ago. So we are now on what is called the Royal Mile. It was originally called that because royalty lived here before it was just for everyone. It's definitely not where royals live now, but yeah, that's how it originally got its name. But it does lead up to Edinburgh Castle, which also housed royals. Sometimes still does if they're in a pinch. It's still an active military base, so if a royal does need to stay, it will be right around here. And one interesting fact that I learned the other day is that the Royal Mile is actually 1 mile and 107 feet long. So not exactly a mile, but you can fudge the numbers a little bit. So yeah, now it's just, you know, a lot of gift shops. But definitely still see the old buildings are still here. The main reason I haven't been able to show much abandoned stuff is because they don't seem to abandon anything here. Everything seems to be refurbished or just used for something else, you know, to make a restaurant out of an old castle building or an old helps quarters. But it is kind of interesting to see how we, well, if you guys like the channel, you know that, especially in Texas, a lot of things get abandoned, especially on sides of the road. So it's, this is a very sustainable way, a little bit more cost efficient, I'm sure. And it's probably easy to keep them running because it's mostly made out of stone. stone won't deteriorate as quickly as the materials that we use in the US, so makes sense. Good little walk down. Oh, and what I mentioned earlier, I did accidentally walk the wrong way, so I did have to go up and down, so if I sound a little out of breath, I'm really out of shape. But yeah, you can see there's some construction going on here. Just a nice little spot, very popular with tourists. Actually, I don't think I'm supposed to be in the middle of the street. Whoopsies. So we are in Hunter Square right now, and it wouldn't really be the Outseers if we didn't look at something abandoned. So right here we've got a classic old phone booth. Looks like it's mostly a trash bin now, or a rubbish bin, as they would say here. But there are two of them. Just kind of a sign of the older times. Let's look inside here. Yeah, looks like it's mostly just a trash bin, but the old phone's still there. I'm sure not in working order. Nobody really needs that anymore with cell phones. But it's kind of funny, in England, or in London, they just took out the last telephone booth that was standing, but here there are still a few around. Alright, so we are approaching the pub that I was referring to, the World's End. Not at World's End, I was thinking of a movie that I like. There's definitely interesting facts and a dark story, but I will tell you all about that after I get a proper pint. Talk to you in a bit. Alright, so just finished my pint. It's quite good. But as promised, I will give you all a bit of history about the World's End bar. First, just some normal history, not as dark. Whenever the bar was named this, it's in honor of what was thought to originally be the World's End for most of Edinburgh. After some major attacks on the city, they decided to fortify it to keep everyone safe and keep everyone out, but on the other hand, it also kept everyone in. So unless you were rich, you were not able to leave the city because you had to pay a toll. It wasn't that much, but not many people had any money back then. So it was very difficult for them to leave the city. They couldn't travel to see their loved ones. They really couldn't do anything outside of what they knew. So that's why it's called the World's End, because it quite literally meant the end of the world. The only place that the people of the city could go. Just a little bit of an explanation. But a little bit more about the dark history. We'll walk down this street while I kind of tell you about that. And before I tell this next story, I would just like to state that I am just stating the facts. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the victims or anything like that. But the kind of darker significance of the World's End pub is that it was the last place that Christine Eady and Helen Scott, two 17-year-olds locals, were seen alive in 1977. This is actually the last street that they were seen walking down. Their friends said they saw them walking with two gentlemen that they had met at the bar, and they disappeared into the mist. Within 24 hours, both bodies were discovered within about 6 miles apart from each other. They were both brutally murdered, and for a while there were no suspects. Originally, there was one of their friends who was there with them until they left the bar, who saw them leave into the mist. He said that he saw a man by the name of Angus Sinclair walking with them. He was just a bar regular, kind of just one of those people that everyone knew. But yes, it was stated that he was walking with them. And although he was not known to be a violent man in the city, he was just known to like to drink. He was eventually charged with both the deaths and was found innocent originally in the 90s. But after the UK abolished their double jeopardy laws, they was tried again for the same crimes. And in 2014, nearly 37 years later, he was officially charged and indicted for convicted for the double murders of the two 17-year-old girls. It's one of the most well-known cases here. People don't really like to talk about it, so I'm kind of trying to talk about it around, not by people. But it's really a really sad event, but it is kind of crazy to think that the bar that I just had a nice lunch at was the last place these girls hung out before they died. And this was the very last street they walked on before they were taken. So one thing about Scotland, there's definitely no shortage of dark history, whether it's more modern or in medieval times. There's always something to talk about, but I guess that can be said about most places that are this old. And yeah, that's just a little story about that. One other thing about the World's End Bar is that it was built in the 16th century, so it's one of the oldest pubs in this entire place, one of the first pubs that was on the Royal Mile. So we are in Cowgate right now. It is where they used to herd and move cattle, and it was just basically a big restroom for them. Now it is one of the most popular bar streets for teenagers, since you can drink at 18 here. One of the most popular places for them to go drink. It's a very young area, but it's kind of just a funny example of what I mentioned earlier, that they don't abandon anything here. So they can take basically a street that was once a toilet and turn it into a fun party street where teenagers come, have a pint, have some shots, party with their friends, just go do all kinds of stuff. But just another example of how they do not abandon anything here, which is pretty cool actually. I think it's really interesting that they just repurpose everything, so basically any building you're in, you have no idea what the historical significance might be, just because it's so old. Here's the inside of the tunnel where the cows used to come through. It's kind of gross to imagine. One thing about Edinburgh, a lot of the directions require you to go down an alley, which this is a very safe city. I hang out by myself all day while Josh works, so I feel totally safe. Oh, this is actually the opening of one of the gates to get to the tunnel. I guess we can go ahead and talk about that. So it may be hard to believe, but right below our feet are tunnels that were built before New Scotland was built, or New Edinburgh. So basically there was a city that existed. They didn't go well. It was just nasty. Not many people wanted to be there. It was not good. So what they decided to do was build over the city. And the old bridge that they built over created tunnels. The tunnels were originally meant to be used for storage, but when the storage didn't work because the water seeped in constantly from the rain, that happens quite often, you've seen it today, people decided they don't want to use that for storage anymore because it was ruining their bottles, it was ruining their cigarettes, their tobacco, everything. So what they decided to do, whenever you were destitute, or say you were working, you didn't really have a job, you didn't have any money, you would live in the tunnels. Unfortunately, with the tunnels, they were pitch black. Nobody could see anything unless you had a candle, which nobody could afford. So it was just completely pitch black all the time. People began to live down there, take shelter in there, but a lot of crime occurred because of the darkness. And unfortunately, I believe in the 18th century, there was a rather large fire that took over most of Scotland, or most of Edinburgh. The fire was so large that the people that lived above ground did try to seek shelter from the fire in the tunnels. They thought that they would be safe underground, but an unfortunate effect of all the stone is that when it gets really hot, it basically turns into a giant pizza oven. So every single person that went down there to seek shelter was trapped, and they could not get out and were basically cremated. So that's what we're walking on here. It's very creepy. Been down there. Pretty sad. Alright, we're going into the underground. To the mask great.
In that room, do not leave that room. Inside this room here, folks. Do not leave this room. You might hear some voices in the tunnel. That'll just be Jesse King's group wrapping up in there.
First, let's say highlight. Oh, right there.
To prove underground.
Pray God have mercy upon us.
Anyone who's not been down there, start making your way down now. Please, my dear. Quite comfy those seats, aren't they? Yeah.